Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast and welcome to our special members in the Ayurveda and Women's Health Sisterhood Facebook group. And a huge welcome to our guest today, who's Suzanne Culberg. And she is an international mindset coach, a speaker and author who helps overgivers and people pleasers learn to say no to others in a way that feels good so that they can say yes to themselves. Through her signature online program, Why Wait, Suzanne has helped hundreds of women break the cycle of putting themselves last and instead build the confidence to set boundaries. This sounds like a really important conversation, so I cannot wait to get into this one. And welcome and thank you so much for joining us, Suzanne.
Thank you so much for having me, Harmony.
It's an absolute pleasure. So as you mentioned, you'd listened to some of my episodes, so you know that I always start with the rapid inspiration questions. So can you inspire us with what your superpower is?
Oh, I was going to say my superpower is being very direct and honest. I don't mince words.
Yeah, I love it. And that came out through your writing as well, which we'll get into your book later. But I loved your book and we will get into that. But first, can you share with us your favorite quote or mantra?
My favorite quote it's by Sophia Bush, and it's, "You can be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously."
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And that is one of the takeaways that you have put in your book as well. And I really, really loved that quote when I read it. I was like, yes. And who or what is inspiring you at the moment?
At the moment, honestly, my son. So my son has been recently diagnosed with autism, and we have been on a journey for him with speech therapy and occupational therapy and reading support, so that he can stay in I don't want to be offensive, a regular school, like not a school for people with higher needs. And his dedication to doing the work and showing up, even when it's hard, even when he's frustrated, it's been really inspiring.
Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. I actually, when you sent me your book, I got a little note from your kids at the front of It's very cute. I showed my husband, he absolutely loved it. They've written out your name and Kashmir's put and Xanthi's like, this is my book, not mummy's.
Yeah, Xanthi writes that and then Kashmir writes his name. It's so funny because the book's been out for a year now, and originally he couldn't write his name, so he just kind of scribbled to some of the earlier editions, but now he can actually write it. It's readable, and it's just like it's been epic. So like, we're recording this in, what are we, October? At the beginning of this school year, he was on level 3 reading, and he's just reached level 15. Wow. He has had an incredible time, dedication, showing up and reading things. So I'm really proud.
Amazing. Well, yeah, it was super cute. So your book is The Beginning is Shit, an unapologetic weight loss memoir. And I thought that it was such a great read. Now, I took this book over to Bali. I went to Bali a few weeks back to do some study and Ayurvedic Panchakarma and all those type of things. But I took your book with me and I was like, I'm going to read it. And usually I'm someone who I'll read a bit of a book and then a bit of another book. I flip through about 5 at the same time. But I read right through, honestly, right from the start all the way to the end. I absolutely loved it. I thought you say it how it is. It was super funny. Parts of it was, really funny, really touching. But some parts, you made me like cry. Like some parts were really sad, and I'm an empath. So when you were talking about, some things that happened through your childhood at school, and I was just like, really, really upset for you. But then I'm like, but look at her now. Like, it's just like, she's killing it. And I guess it's just one of those journeys you go through to get to where you are and to be who you are. And it's all really part of it. So I'd love for you to share with us your story on your path to becoming this mindset coach.
Oh, so I've never been a person who naturally has good boundaries. Somebody will say, can you? And I would never check in. I'd just be like, yeah, sure. Whatever it is. Can you help me move at 6 a.m. tomorrow? Of course. Yeah. And it never occurred to me that sometimes some of the requests were a little extreme, or perhaps I was being taken advantage of. I just wanted to be a helper and I wanted to be generous. And it wasn't really until probably, when I had children of my own and less actual time, because, children are a big time suck, loving one, but still, that I was like, wow, I don't really know how to say no without feeling like a bitch. So it was just kind of like, I give and I give and I give, and then I feel kind of resentful. And it's hard to admit. I know many people don't want to admit feeling resentful. And then I don't like feeling resentful or angry. Like, there's not nice feelings to have. So then I go and eat. And when I eat, for a short period of time, I feel nothing. Like, when I eat heaps, I feel nothing. And then I feel guilty. But that guilt is very self-directed, because like, I can't keep it together, or I'm lazy, or I'm, rather than the resentment or the anger, which was externally directed. Mm-hmm. So the work that I really began to do, and what was like the launching of my business, was kind of like, why are some feelings unavailable? Like, why is it bad to feel angry or to feel resentful? It doesn't mean you go and yell at someone. It doesn't mean you go and act on it. But like, allowing the space to feel those feelings and let them move through. Like, an emotion, I don't know who said the quote, but it's like energy in motion. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't allow it, it's energy stuck in our body. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you about this with the work that you do, but it was just kind of like, something needs to change here. And when I started to say no to other people, yes, there was some kickback, especially for people who are closest to you, my parents, my siblings, a little bit my husband, but not as much as I would have expected. Some friends, but then new people who came into my life never knew a different version of me. They were just like, oh, that's Suzanne, and that's how she is, and she has really strong boundaries. So say you're like, Harmony, Suzanne, do you want to go to the movies next week? And I'll be like, sure. And then on the day, I might be like, actually, I'm having an introvert day. And I love how you said you're an empath. I'm an empath too. So sometimes, things are just too much. Mm-hmm. So I'd say, actually, I'm having an introvert day. Can we reschedule or whatever? And people will be like, oh, Suzanne, that's so rude. I'm like, no, what's rude is saying, I've got a cough, or like faking an illness. Whereas people know, like, if it was your wedding, I'd be like 100% that doesn't care if I would overcome that. But the ability to be really honest with people and say, actually, this is how I am, or thanks so much for inviting me. I'm not actually interested in Marvel movies, but if you go and see a bad rom-com, I'm there. And I think that's the thing with boundaries. Like, we let people get to know us, and we get to know people, and we realize we're not making it mean anything. Like, if I say no to something, it doesn't mean anything about how I think about you or whatever. It's just like, that kind of thing doesn't float my boat. And then through that, you have access to much more of your feelings and have them be energy in motion once more.
So was this a gradual shift for you, or were you just like, one day, I'm done with this shit and I am going to like put in my boundaries and I'm going to articulate those, and here comes the whole new Suzanne?
No, it was very, very gradual. So it was really, really funny, because I reached a point. So I used to weigh 150 kilos, so twice what I do now. And I knew I had to do something about my physical body. Like, it was unhealthy. It was too large. I had 2 kids who, one was walking, one wasn't. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with 2. It's not safe. Mm-hmm. But I can't diet again. I can't force myself. I can't deprive myself. I wrote about that in the book. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with dieting. So I knew that was kind of like a line in the sand thing. But the boundaries thing was more gradual, because I never really saw the link. And, they say life is lived forward, but understood backwards. Yeah. I never saw the link between my eating and my poor boundaries, my overgiving, until after I'd moved through it. And then I really began to shore them up, because the same thing that was happening in my personal life, like in my eating habits, was happening in my business. My client sessions were going over time. People were canceling. I was like, sure, just make it up. A 6-month contract become 18 months because people canceled their sessions, but I was still doing email support. And I was like, this is mirroring. This is exactly the same thing that I just went through. And that's why my business went from weight loss coaching, which is what I did until last month. But it's still the same, but different, because the core of it is, when we overgive, giving and receiving are in balance. They're a pair. You can't have one without the other, like inhaling and exhaling. Eventually you would just pass out if you exhaled enough and didn't breathe in. So when we overgive, we overconsume. And that could be food, because I'm a classic foodie, or it could be work or shopping or even exercise. And the thing is, anything done to excess is unhealthy. So I believe that I yo-yo dieted for so many years because I never addressed my overgiving. I just pushed it off. So when I went on a diet, I would overspend, or I would overwork, or I would over-exercise, which is how I injured my back. I talked about that in the book. So it's kind of like, what is driving this overdoing, and how can we address that? And I believe it's by having firm boundaries. So it's been like, I don't know, as I say, 30 odd years in the making altogether, but the actual knitting together of it has been like the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, beautiful. And you are big on obviously helping women set boundaries, but making boundaries normal behavior. It's not like this scary thing that we have to do. What, in your experience, is the biggest hurdle for women to set and keep to the boundaries?
I think the biggest hurdle is, especially for women who are mothers, we parent all day. Like, we say yes and no to our children. Don't touch that. Don't eat that. You know, that's not safe and whatever. And at the end of the day, that no muscle is exhausted.
Yeah.
And we haven't done anything for ourselves often during the day. We're like, I'll get to this later. I'll get to this later. I'll get to this later. And in the evening, we're so exhausted that it's like, I'm just going to Netflix and chips and do it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing to overcoming that is to give yourself pockets of time during the day. Like, say you finally get your child down for a nap. My kids don't nap anymore. They're older. But when they did, instead of going, oh, thank goodness, I have, you know, maybe 20 minutes, 45, mine never napped long. They're more cat nappers. I'm just going to have a cup of tea and bask in the sun or just breathe or whatever. I'd be like running around, cleaning the kitchen, mopping the floor, like whatever. Because everyone's like, you sleep when, no, what do they say? Sleep when the baby sleeps. And I was like, so do I clean when the baby cleans? Yeah. So it's like, give yourself pockets of time during the day. And then in the evening, you're not overdrawn that you overconsume.
Yeah. Beautiful. And so what advice can you give someone who finds it difficult to set boundaries without feeling like they're selfish? Because I run the Ayurveda Alchemist program, and that certifies women to become Ayurveda lifestyle and wellness coaches. And we talk about, like, in our business modules and stuff, about boundaries and how to set them and why it's so important. But, you know, what comes up a lot is like, you know, people can feel really constricted, or they find it like just easier, even though they feel resentful, easier just to do the things than have to set the boundaries, because it means that they have to step up and they have to make them really clear. And I also explain to them, like, if you haven't articulated your boundaries, people aren't really overstepping them because they don't know that they're boundaries.
Yes, so, I'm glad you asked. I'm one for hand-drawn slides. So these is ones I use in my program. So often when we have very weak boundaries, because I know some of you are watching the video, but if you're not watching the video, I've got a little person, and what should be a boundary around them is more like just dots. And then they're saying yes to everything. So everything comes in. This is an example of weak boundaries. So it's when we're like, oh, and what we tend to do when we don't know how to set boundaries is we can often pendulum to the other side and go with really rigid boundaries. And this is a person with a circle, lots of circles around them. There's no way in. Mm-hmm. And we basically say no to everything. The issue with rigid boundaries is nothing can come in. Like, a boundary isn't a barricade or a shield. It's more a fence with a gate that you can open and close. Mm. So when you have healthy boundaries, you have the little person with circle around the outside of them with a couple of breaks, so they can say no to some things and they can say yes to some things. But the very first thing you need to do, instead of going, well, you know, Suzanne says, or Harmony says, or someone says, these are my boundaries, what is a boundary for you? And it may be very different. Like, so for me, in my business, I don't like DMs. Like, I know a lot of people love it. Just send me a DM. I'm not a DM person. To me, it you know, personally feels intrusive. Mm-hmm. I like to be emailed. I only have email on my computer. That's a boundary for myself, because otherwise I spend all my day on my phone and I'm not present with my kids. Mm-hmm. So I have email on my computer. Send me an email. Let's chat. Other people love DMs. That's how they conduct their business and whatever. So the first thing with setting your boundaries is working out what yours are and realizing that you could test it. You might be like, actually, no, I like DMs. And then you'd be like, oh no, I don't. To me, it felt like I went to medical school. DMs make me feel like I'm on call. Ping, ping. So I'm like, no, I'm not available for this. Yeah. But it's like working out what they are. And then, as you said, telling people what they are, because the thing is, people can't uphold our boundaries if they don't know what they are. And for this, the best quote I've ever found is from Brene Brown. She says, choose discomfort over resentment. So it's often very uncomfortable to sit down with somebody and have the conversation and say, actually, and the thing is, it could be, so like with my clients, I was available for DMs. And I remember in my group, I did a video. I said, look, up until now, this has been the case. Going forward, this is how it's going to be. I'm not blaming. I don't want anyone to feel bad. This has been, so you own your part of it. And then also to the consequence. So I was like, look, if anyone does DM me, you're not in trouble. I'm not going to yell at you, but I'm going to lovingly remind you of how I like to be contacted. Please send me an email. And now that I've had these boundaries in place for my group for over a year, I basically say at the beginning of every round, this is how it is. And if you DM me, I just won't answer. Like, that's the boundary I have now. Like, not that whatever, but like, because the thing is, sometimes too, redirecting people to your boundaries, for me, empath, mental energy and stuff, how to word it that I don't, because the thing is, if you catch me where my kids are bickering and whatever, and I'm like, I could be quite short, but if you message me at another time, and then all the mental drama that goes in on both sides. So it's kind of like, it's working out what works for you, testing it and being available to changing it. Same with reschedules, like client reschedules. I have a 24-hour hard policy because I can't be the arbiter of which excuse, well, I don't like that, but reason is acceptable or not. I'm running a business. You don't go to Coles and go, sorry, I'm taking this bread, but I'm going to pay for it in 2 weeks. If you don't have the money, you don't get the bread. Hard stop. So it's like that when you coach with me. If it's less than 24 hours, the session's forfeit. Hard stop.
Yeah. Good on you. Good on you. You should take a leaf out of your book. The DMs that come in, just a quick question, and you're like, no, it ain't going to be a quick question if it's like, related to health or something like that. It's never just a quick question. It's always like a personalized prescription question. So yeah, I hear you. I'm big on that one too. But yeah, with your own health journey, like you said you've been to medical school. I read about that as well in the book, and you've been a personal trainer, and now you're into all of the health coaching side of things. And as you've mentioned, you've done like every diet out there. And decided to give up dieting for good, which is amazing. I'd love to talk more about that later. But I guess in today's world, we are really bombarded with the idea that health is, to get our physical body back into shape. We are being more aware that health lies a lot deeper. And from like an Ayurvedic perspective, like we see health in a very, very complex and deeper meaning. So we look at the mental, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the body tissues, the waste, how it goes in, how it goes out, like all of this in a really holistic concept. For you, I guess you also, through your journey of experiencing all these realms of health and now understanding like boundaries play such a big, big part in health. What do you think it is, or can you share with us what else we should be considering when it comes to our health and well-being, just besides that sort of physical component?
Oh, 100%. And it's just something that I get very ranty about, because like fat shaming is totally a thing. I've done a video about this before. And what I love when I share my experiences is some people tell me that would never happen. And I'm like, this is not a hypothetical. This has been what's happened to me. And when we see someone and we say, I'm concerned about your health, like that's their physical health. It's only, I'm not saying it's not important, but you don't know what's going on with their mental and their emotional health, the way they speak to themselves, what they put themselves through to go onto those diets and off of those diets, and what the toll that takes. And I got Apple TV because I wanted to watch Ted Lasso. 100% side note, go watch that. It's amazing. Any coaches out there, I highly recommended it. And I was like, I've got the trial. I'll see what else there is. There's some other show called Physical, or Let's Get Physical, about a lady who starts doing aerobics and whatever. I could not get past the first 10 minutes of the episode because it just brought all my stuff back up, because she was like, I'm going to start this diet. Today's going to be the day. I'm going to eat really healthy. Oh no, I had a donut. Oh, I'm such a bad person. I can't, like just the mental load of the way she spoke to herself. And I'm like, whether or not you release physical weight has never been my passion. My passion is the way that we speak to ourselves, and, the way we treat ourselves mentally and emotionally, because the thoughts that we have, like, imagine going around all day, because I lived it for so long, saying, fat and lazy and you can't keep it together and you're not good enough and like that. Why would you want to take care of that? Do you want to take care of something that you hate? Like something that you just kind of avoid and ignore? So the language and the way that we speak to ourselves, when we don't reach the goal, when we don't hit the milestone, the result of the things that we're doing, because that's the other thing too, we're letting a metal inanimate object, like I haven't weighed myself in years now. I know I'm up a bit, you can feel it in my clothes and COVID and everything, but like I don't care, because that number isn't as important as the relationship I have with myself. And I think, so many of us, we can beat ourselves up for not reaching our health goals, for not reaching our business goals, because we yelled at our kids, because, we let our partner down, and so on and so forth. And that's just not a healthy, nice environment to live in. And then no wonder we look for escapism in over consuming in some way. So, the mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic relationships that we have and forge and cultivate, I think, is so much more important. And then the physical is often the last to show it because you can have a mindset shift in an instant. You can have a breakthrough and go, aha, overgiving, I get it, but you're not skinny tomorrow. So it's kind of like the physical is often the last frontier, but we tend to bash the physical first and force ourselves to eat stuff that we don't like and exercise and burn calories while we have all this mental drama going on and wonder why we can't maintain it.
Absolutely. And it just reminds me, one of the quotes that you wrote in the book is, you can't hate yourself skinny. And I really loved that, because it's so true, and if you are going to, try to improve your physical health by eating nutritious meals and doing some exercise, you can't go in with that mindset of hating yourself skinny, and that's the reason you're doing it. It has to be for nourishment, for health, and also there's a fine line as well on how you speak to yourself about that as well. So when was it? How did you make that mindset shift? Because you did mention, like, even so from a child, you were yo-yo dieting with your family, and it sort of carried on for many, many years. So what was it that sort of helped you make that shift around the diet culture and be able to get into a different mindset to say, you know what, I'm done with this, but I'm still inspired to be healthy and to show up as my best self and, reach that higher self, but through a real avenue of self-compassion and care, and just with that whole different lens?
Oh, no one's ever asked me that in that way before. And the first thought that comes to mind is all the things that should, in inverted commas, have worked, and all the diets and all the stuff hadn't. So it's kind of like, I'd just rather be fat forever than keep living this way. So my point was, like, when I quit dieting, it was just kind of like, I would rather be like this. And I literally went and bought a whole new wardrobe at the size I was, which I'd never done before. I'd always bought things smaller and hung them up to try and motivate myself. It never motivated myself. Always made me feel shit about myself. So I was like, this is it. This is how I'm going to be. Go and buy new clothes that actually fit and, make me feel good, rather than a too tight and I feel uncomfortable. And because when you think about it, if you're uncomfortable all day because your bra's too tight or your pants are too tight, and you get home and you rip your bra off and you open your pants up and you're, no wonder you sit down and go and eat everything, because you're just like, oh. Whereas if you feel comfortable, like if you're like, you go for a walk and nothing hurts or nothing's too tight and you can actually breathe, then you want to keep doing the things. So it's like, none of these things have worked. I'm not going to get sucked into that rabbit hole again. I'm just going to be here. And then from there, I think there's the freedom to be like, oh, it can happen. And I did release 78 kilos. It took 3 years. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't instant. And for the first year was kind of, I think the big thing for me too is, when nothing's forbidden, it loses some of its appeal. So if you're like, oh, I can never eat ice cream again, I better eat the whole tub now because tomorrow I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
Then you do. Whereas if you're like, I can eat ice cream whenever I want, it's like, for a bit I ate all the stuff, But then it really loses its appeal, because it's like you can have it anytime. Nothing's forbidden. The inner rebellious teenager archetype kind of calms down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. And so that's over 3 years though. Did you say 73 kilos that you lost?
78. Yeah.
78 kilos. Like that is a big effort. Like that's huge. Like to be able to do that without, doing all of the restrictive dieting that you had. So do you attribute that weight loss to your mindset shift?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because when I stopped dieting and starting on Monday, and for every diet there's an equal and opposite binge, it was just like, so for a couple of weeks I did eat all the stuff, and then I was like, actually this, the thing is, people go, oh, if I let myself go, I'd be bigger than ever. If I let myself go, I'd have no control. But you do start to feel into, how does this feel? Like my body feels sluggish. I feel tired. I feel lethargic. And then when I eat things that are nourishing, I feel lit up. I feel my concentration's there. So it's like actually relearning, because we do know when we're children to listen to our body. Like you look at a kid eat, and they eat when they're hungry and they stop when there's enough, and that's it. But somewhere along the line, those of us who've come into the diet culture, the time, the clock, the calorie counter, that thing tells us how we can eat. And then we lose touch with our body altogether. So you do come into a rhythm. Like some days I'm really hungry and I would eat on what another day I wouldn't eat at all, like by 10 o'clock. And then other days I'm like, oh, it's 4. Oh, I haven't really eaten anything, because it's like getting back in touch. Because when you think about it from paleo times, not paleo diet, but paleo times, we were nomadic. We wandered around. Oh, there's a field of berries, eat, and then wander. Like we didn't eat by like a lunchtime. We didn't even have a clock, So when people be like, I have breakfast this time, lunch this time, dinner this time, snack. And it's like, now I eat when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm satisfied. But relearning that took months, because I didn't really know what hunger felt like. I always ate before I got hungry because I was so afraid of feeling hungry. But then I'd let myself go too far where I'm shaky and lightheaded. And so it's like learning where your things are and what your signals are for being hungry.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like we say in Ayurveda, it's really about like cultivating that radical self-awareness about yourself and your body. And we, like from an Ayurvedic perspective, we do advocate for eating at similar times of the day, but not, it's because we go off the natural biorhythm and our own bio clock, and the way that the sun is like the warmest in the middle of the day, it associates with our Agni, our digestive fire is the strongest in the middle of the day. So just sort of cultivating those healthy behaviors around nature. So
yes,
yeah, so not like,
because I actually eat my biggest meal usually is lunch, and in dinner is smaller, because I don't really need anything in the night. I'm usually going to just get the kids ready for bed and then maybe watch TV or journal. So like dinner traditionally, and I think for most Western cultures, dinner is our biggest meal, and then dessert, but then we're not doing anything. So
yeah, totally. And it was, it used to be called supper, right, which meant supplementary meal, not like this huge big thing. But with our culture, yes, we have made it the biggest sort of meal of the day, because the family comes together. And what I often tell my clients is like, you can still all come together. It's not about how much you're eating together. It's about the connection that you're having together. So even, if I
think we've lost sight of that. I've said to my clients before too, like they're like, oh, I meet my friend for tea and cake and whatever. And I'm like, could you have herbal tea, or could you go for a walk if they're open for it? Like, because the thing is, your boundaries is about your change. It's not telling other people what they should do. So if they still want to have coffee and cake, it's not, you don't want to be that friend. But I'm like, if the best thing about this catch up is the coffee and cake, then it's time to get new friends. So, it's kind of like we do meet for all the connection.
Yeah. So I guess so basically like health and the big shift that you had, come from radical self-awareness, mindset shift, and setting boundaries would be, some of the top, I guess, shifts that you had to do to create that big change.
And
yeah, no, please go. Because I was going to say, is there anything else that you feel comes, with those 3 things?
Self-care. And when I say self-care, I don't mean massages and bubble baths and stuff. Like for me, true self-care is making the doctor's appointment that you've been putting off, or, you know, scheduling a time for your walk or whatever it is you want to do and actually following through. Like self-care is creating a budget, like doing the things that you know you should do but put off, and actually having that self-discipline to follow through with them. So, you know, often we don't want to, like, so for me, I'm still not the best exerciser. I haven't been a personal trainer. I've been very fit in my life, but it's never been something that comes easy to me. It's funny, my daughter is a naturally physical person. She loves to climb, jump, skip, always has been. Sometimes while I'm preparing dinner, she's there just doing star jumps because she's just one of these, like, have you ever played the game Sims? You know how some Sims have like an athletic personality? That's my daughter. Me, I'm more like the sloth. So my self-care, like my routine for exercise, is shoes on, end of my driveway every morning. And everyone's like, wow, you must have a long driveway. I'm like, no, it's 12 steps. And they're like, what? And I'm like, that's the minimum. Because the thing is, my barrier to entry is often putting my shoes on. Hence why I have to put the shoes on, not do it barefoot. And then once I've reached the end of the driveway, 9 times out of 10, I keep going. And then from there, it can be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. It varies. But so often when we set a goal, we're like, it's 45 minutes or nothing. And it's not self-care to set ourselves up to fail by making the steps so big that we only do them once a week. So, what are the things? For me, it's some sort of physical thing, some sort of mindset thing, whether it be journaling or meditating or something like that, something for my, mental health, and an eating thing. So currently I have these vitamins because I have issues with iron. So I'm taking this beef liver thingy, and so it's like taking that each day, and then, committing to those little things. And even though I don't want to, or I can't be bothered, or it's so easy to forget, or things like that. So self-care, not against massages and bubble baths, but I think, self-care is putting self first and realizing that it's not selfish, and doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do, but do add up for your long-term health.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if there is, someone out there who has been on the weight loss roller coaster, always trying different diets and maybe getting to their goal, but then not feeling like they've, I guess they've reached that desired result of feeling free and, happy and all of those things, and then perhaps even put the weight back on and they start another one. Like, what advice would you give to these people?
I literally have on my desk, and I'll show the people on camera, a little piece of fool's gold that I keep. And the reason I have this is so often we think, once I've lost the weight, once I've made the money, once I've met the man, once I've had the kid, like once this, then I can be happy and confident and like whatever else it is. And then when you reach the goal, you're like, oh, I'm still me. So I keep this little piece of fool's gold on my desk always to remind me that I only ever have now. And like the way that you become happy or confident or whatever it is, the thing that you think that the goal is going to give you, how can you cultivate that today? Because often for the people I work with, and I know for myself, it's, it's self-worth. Like when I've lost this much weight, then I'll be enough. When I've made this much money, then I'll be enough. We're always enough. We're inherently enough. We're born enough, and keep working through that and reminding ourselves of that the outcome doesn't determine our worthiness, that we do. So whenever we're tempted to push the goalpost back or say, well, I can't have this because, like, what can you do? Like, what are you really hoping for? And, often it's happiness and confidence. The way you get confident is just to show up. If you look back through my stuff, I haven't taken any of my stuff down. I love looking back through my early Facebook lives where I was so nervous. I have my kids there. My best friend's like, oh, goodness, Suzanne, you got a pole stuck up your butt. Like that. You get better by just keep going rather than magically reaching a number or an income level or something like that.
Totally. And so what was the biggest shift for you after losing the 78 kilos, would you say?
The biggest thing for me, and it's the thing that nobody wants to hear, it was really disappointing because I was still me. And people were always telling me how I must feel. You must be so happy. You must be so confident. You must be this. And I was like, no. I'm actually, because I don't have food. At least before I had food, and now I don't. So the journey only really started with the releasing of the physical weight, and the rest of the journey is ongoing. And it's just kind of like, I was always enough.
So
And
because you said like you used food like as an escape mechanism, as a comfort, because you could feel numb. So what did you then do when you didn't or use food for that?
So I call it the void,
Yeah.
and I used to fill the void with food or exercise or shopping. And it's like learning to sit. Well, first of all, identifying that there is a void, that there's something, and then just learning to sit with that, sit in that discomfort, sit in that, like feel the range of feelings, and then letting them pass through. So when you eat or shop or something, you're avoiding it or you're shoving it down. But when you just sit with it and it's like, oh, it's kind of like the rain, it stops, or a big wave, it recedes. And it's like, and even now, when I find myself buying something for the kids, or I'm like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow, I'm like, oh, hello. Instead of beating myself up and going, I'm a failure or I'm not motivated, it's a signal. It's like a traffic light to go, what's happening here? So all the things that we, chronic dieters say we're not good enough for, they're not problems to be fixed. You're not broken. It's just a light that something's happening. And for me, it's that relief from that, because I was always like, oh, I'm a hypocrite, or I'm a failure or a fake. And it's like, no, I'm a person. We're all people, and we have our ways of coping with things, and some are healthier than others. And the biggest thing is just learning to sit with that feeling of discomfort and letting it write itself out.
Wonderful. And before we go, do you have any inspiring transformations that you have worked with a client? So I know you've done weight loss coaching in the past, and now you're more working with the mindset and boundaries. So
Yes.
either or, have you got any sort of transformational stories that you would love to share with us?
Oh, I have so many clients. I have a thing about sharing. It's funny. My very first time in business, when I was working in someone else's business, they wrote all their own testimonials. So I always had a little bit thing about how much is this just really true? So there's that. And also, I don't want to take credit for someone's success, because I think this is where the dieting industry goes wrong. Because the thing is, when I do Weight Watchers, I have success. Weight Watchers is amazing. When I go off Weight Watchers, I gain all the weight back. So I'm a lazy person who can't keep it together. So I don't ever want to attribute any of my clients' success to working with me, because they've done the work. So there is that. But I have worked with clients who have released 30, 40, 50 kilograms, and it's been sensational. Many of them have gone through the same thing as me. It's like, I remember one of them, she dropped 50 kilograms and she was like, well, I'm waiting for my transformation. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, the thing is, as a coach, get curious, like, because we can make it mean things. Yeah. And what she was saying was like, I don't feel how I thought I would. And she's like, so now, like, I've got loose skin and I've got this, like, whenever we solve a problem, there's another problem. That's not a problem because that's life. We fix this and then that. Like, you grow your business. You're like, oh, this is exciting, but now you've got bigger overheads. Oh, that's a problem. So she was like, where's my transformation? As in, I thought I would feel. And this became a whole nother coaching package session about the thinking and the feeling. And the biggest things, if you head to my website, I've got video testimonials now and things that clients have written that I love about working with them. It's how they feel about themselves. Like, a number have said, I didn't drop physical weight, but my mental weight, like the way I spoke to myself or the thoughts that I had, because so often we think we're lazy. We have this lazy dysmorphia in the Western world, or we're unmotivated. And it's like, actually, if you were truly unmotivated and lazy, you would have quit. The fact that you keep showing up, so much grit and determination. So the people that I work with, what I love is the shift in their mindset and that realization that, they don't need to fix anything because they're not broken, and they can feel those feelings now, regardless of a result.
Beautiful. And you're so right, that mental weight can be heavier than any body weight, can it?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's where you feel that like real lightness, when you can shift that. Yeah, wonderful. And so would you say I guess if we're not attributing their success to yourself or their program, like, I completely understand the success is on the client because they show up for the work, they do the work. You're just there as a guide and a mentor. It's the same with my women's health clients who come and see me for hormonal health or gut health. It's like they get amazing results, but they've done the work.
Yes. And I think when we reclaim that, it's like we were the problem and we're the solution, like not we were the problem and this person, because then we're giving our power away to an external authority, whether it be a coach or a program or something else. It's like when we reclaim that, I believe that's really life-changing. And you can acknowledge people who have helped you. Like I acknowledge, coaches that I've worked with and programs I've done, but I've done them. And I think that's a big shift, because sometimes with dieting mentality, I've bought this, now where's my weight loss? And it's like, yeah, but have you actually actioned it? Even listening, because sometimes we can be like, I listened to all these podcasts and I read all these books and nothing's changed. It's like, but what have you actually done differently? Not from a place of judgment or shame or guilt, but because we can get stuck in this passive action of consuming, consuming information, and we can control how much we consume, but we can't control how much we digest. And digestion is when we take that knowledge and take it into action. And as I said, baby steps. My walk is the end of my driveway, and then the compound interest of those baby steps over time.
So if you had to give one key to success, what would it be?
Showing up. What's that saying? 80% of success is just showing up, like continuing to show up. Because if you show up with this, my success is inevitable, like I'm not going to quit, so it's inevitable, and take away the timeline of it has to be by Christmas, my birthday, or my reunion, or whatever. Like I'm in this. Then it's just it's an instant relief.
Just showing up for yourself over your lifetime. And absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed speaking to you. And as I mentioned, I really enjoyed reading your book. And I think, anyone who's ever been on a diet, which I think is so many of us, or if you are a yo-yo dieter, please go and read Suzanne's book. It's called The Beginning is Shit, an Unapologetic Weight Loss Memoir. And like I said, lots of emotions will be stirred up, but it's a very easy read and a very fun read. So thank you so much. And where else can our listeners find you?
My website, so SuzanneCulberg.com. And if you want to check out the first 2 chapters of the book, you can grab that on my website, and it doesn't sign you up for my list. I'm all about ethical marketing. So you literally get the 2 chapters. But if you want to join my list, you can there as well. But you can grab the first 2 chapters for there. And the thing you talked about in school is in the 2nd chapter of the book. And it's funny, that's been my most responded to part, like the art project.
I was like, what the hell? Like, I was just shocked that people, kids can be so cruel, right? Just nasty, and that stuff can stick with you for a really long time. So anyway, go read it, people.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it's so lovely having you on. Thank you so much. I think we've sort of covered nearly everything, but if you've got any takeaways or quotes you want to leave us with, please do.
I was just going to say, just stay in the room. Like, even if you've only got like a toenail in, you stay in the room, because it can be so easy to go, I'll start again tomorrow. No, right now in this moment, and make your thing that you're going to do so small you can't not do it. Whether it be walk out your front door, have a glass of water, just something really, really small. And the more you celebrate, the more things come into you to celebrate. So instead of going on the downward spiral of Monday or whatever, go on the upward spiral of all the little things that you can do.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. Bye.